This is a Pubcast Shot. I'm John Loomer. When does remarketing actually make sense? Let's go. So if you've been following along closely here and my content elsewhere, you should know how I feel about remarketing. Now, there was a time when it made a whole lot of sense to target the people who visited your website, who are on your email list, or engaged with your content. And I'd say that remarketing made up about 90% of my ad budget at one point. But remarketing just isn't necessary now in most cases. We did it before because Meta needed to know who the people were who were most likely to convert. But Meta knows that now. And if you run sales campaigns, you can prove that Meta targets these people automatically using audience segments and breakdowns. So yeah, remarketing is generally unnecessary. And it's got other issues like a lack of scalability and incrementality. And the results you do get are misleading. But I'm not 100% anti-remarketing. Today, I want to share an example of a very specific situation where remarketing might be useful. So let's assume that you have a tiered business model. You have a low-ticket offer to get people into your funnel. Let's say that low-ticket offer is $30. It could be a webinar or course or something else that you could sell for a smaller amount. But you do this with the intent on upselling a high-ticket offer because that low-ticket offer itself probably won't be profitable. Let's say that the more exclusive product is $10,000. So a whole lot of work goes into upgrading the low-ticket customers into high-ticket customers. You hired salespeople who reach out via phone or text. You have an automated email sequence that goes out explaining the benefits of this high-ticket product. Now, you've chosen not to run ads for the high-ticket product. There could be lots of reasons for this. One might be that it's so difficult to generate the volume of purchases at a $10,000 price point that it's just not profitable. Another might be that getting $10,000 sales from a potential customer pool that includes cold audiences could lead to more refunds. And refunds are a cost to business. So you run ads to promote the low-ticket product. When you do that, you can spend the budget and get the volume of conversions to do this successfully. Of course, you may not be profitable selling the low-ticket product. It's not easy turning a profit when the margins are that narrow. But that's not the point. Your end goal is to get those $10,000 upgrades. And that's where profitability happens. So you follow these sales of the low-ticket product through your funnel and track how many of them upgrade. Ultimately, that will be how you determine the effectiveness and profitability of your advertising. This is also why you should scrutinize your sales outreach and email sequences since they represent such a critical element of all of this. But there's something you can do that can help, and that's where remarketing comes in. Here's how it works, and I admit that this is a bit of an old school approach that takes from strategies I used 10 years ago. First, create at least 2 custom audiences that represent the people who recently purchased your low-ticket item. That will probably include a website custom audience and a customer list custom audience. The reason we want more than one is that each type is imperfect and is unlikely to match up to every customer. So we combine them. Then create a campaign using the awareness objective. You'll then use a performance goal to maximize reach. The reason for this is that we want to reach all of the low-ticket customers. If you optimize for conversions, Meta will only pick a percentage of that pool. Now, this audience is likely to be around 1,000 people or so that could create problems. You may get deliverability issues, and that's less likely to happen if you optimize for reach. One option when optimizing for reach is a frequency cap, and what you use here is up to you, but it depends on the window of time that people will see your ads. You could make an argument of a maximum of 1 or 2 impressions per day, rather than the 2 impressions in 7 days default. For your targeting, make sure you're only reaching the people in those 2 custom audiences. This is where you'll want to narrow it and turn Advantage Plus off, one of those rare situations. Next, only use the most impactful placements like feeds, reels, and stories. Now, I know this goes against so much of what I typically recommend, but it's because we're optimizing for reach. If you don't do this, a ton of your impressions will go to placements where people don't even notice your ads because it's cheap to reach them. And then create ads that mimic your messaging that comes from sales outreach and email sequences. And finally, it's possible you have a new feature called ad sequencing that could be very helpful here. So you can determine an order that people will see these ads. Now, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Don't create separate ad sets and all that business trying to make this happen. So understand this. You might have problems reaching these people by phone or text. Maybe they're not opening your emails, or you're going to the other folder or spam. Or maybe they are getting all of these messages, but they haven't made up their mind on upgrading. These ads will give you one more way to reinforce your message. Because the audience is small, the costs are going to be very low. But these ads can work really nicely with your other efforts to help complete the sale. So here's the bottom of the glass. While I wouldn't recommend remarketing normally, it can be really useful here. When you do this, the return on ad spend will appear ridiculous. But ignore that. Don't share screenshots bragging about how amazing your advertising is. This isn't the point. The results will be misleading because of view-through conversions, and it's not scalable. But this is absolutely a way to use remarketing now in an efficient way that can actually be helpful. So if you have a similar business model, consider experimenting with something like this. Then report back. Meta advertising is a lot to keep up with. And if you go to my website, it can be difficult to figure out where should you start. Well, here's an option. I've assembled more than 50 of my most important blog posts. These are guides, tutorials, how-tos, detailed explanations of how things work that are central to knowledge of meta advertising. They are what I consider my cornerstone tips. So what you can do is you can subscribe to these cornerstone tips. Get a new one delivered to your inbox every Monday. It's a great way to kick off your week. Some of these are newer. Some of them are at least a year old. But you know what? They're still relevant. They're still important. So even if you're subscribed to blog alerts or something else, these cornerstone tips will help you get caught up on a lot of the older stuff that you may have missed. To subscribe to Cornerstone Tips, just go to johnloomer.com/cornerstone. Thanks again for joining me today. Until next time, do awesome things. I'm out.